So what was the consensus on the tortoise and turtles?
So I believe turtles have flippers, and tortoises are the ones that walk on land. Yeah. The more you know.
Interesting.
That's why it's a sea turtle, because you've never heard of a sea tortoise, right? That's not a thing.
Did you see a picture that Joe Rogan posted of the ghost shark?
No. Well, let me pull this up. It's called the ghost shark.
Nick, Jesus Christ.
Wow, it's so disruptive.
So disruptive.
I love actually looking at Joe Rogan's posts because I can just tell the ones where he's super high.
Yeah.
You know, and you're like he'll just like comment on the state of the world, and I'm like, oh, you were so high when you wrote this.
Anyway, I mean, this is for your personal entertainment, so I'm not gonna wait for you to pull up the picture of the. Yeah, look, he's like,
that's a real thing.
A ghost shark.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Google ghost shark if you want to know what we're talking about.
Just the
Isn't
fact.
there like 70% of the ocean that we still haven't discovered?
Yeah, I read a stat that said that we know more about outer space, like in the universe, than we do about the deepest depths of the ocean.
That's crazy.
I wonder why that is.
I think because once you're in space, there's no like the obstacle is getting there and surviving there, but like the atmosphere doesn't change that much once you're out there, whereas in the ocean we just physically don't have machines that can get deep enough yet.
Right, but it's a technology problem.
Yeah.
Because the atmosphere is different up there, but we figure out a way to be able to be there relatively safely.
Yeah, but I don't like going in the ocean.
No, me neither. You know, I used to think that
This story
I used to think that I like obviously I know sharks are in the ocean, but I used to think that whenever I was in the ocean, sharks weren't nearby. You know, they're
And
like.
you see those flyover videos where there's like sharks within 3 feet of you.
Well, I lived it. So I used to be fearless. Like get in the water, do wake surfing, like in open water, didn't care, get in and get out, waves, whatever. And then this guy was like, I'm not going to get in there. Like there's probably sharks. And I was like, bro, there's no sharks here. Like the sharks are over there in some other part. And then we went fishing. This guy, and they chummed the water with like a bunch of blood and like bloody fish and whatnot. And within seconds, there were tens of sharks around the boat. I'm like,
yeah,
there.
It was like pretty immediate. And I think the thing that's scary too is like they can just travel so fast.
Yeah.
So it's like even if they're not really anywhere near you, if it's like, I don't know, how many, like what if you cut your toe and then you're in the water and then that thing smells it from like wherever it is, it's there in 2 seconds, ripping you up.
yeah, that's a hard pass for me.
Yeah.
But anyway, Tyler, what's up?
Not much.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Thank you.
welcome.
Thanks for having me.
When did you fight last?
I think it was May 21st. It was May 21st or May 16th.
How did that go?
In May. I won a unanimous decision. Came out with a few stitches, but it made it all worth it.
You had a pretty good stitcher upper because it doesn't look like anything happened.
Yeah, where'd you get cut?
I had under my left eye, I had 9. They had to do 3 deep. No, they did 3 deep and then 9 over top of that. Then I had 3 more in the top eyelid, and then they just super glued this side.
They had to stitch underneath the skin first?
Yeah, because this one was like really deep.
Ooh.
So I had 3 deep ones that were dissolvable, and then over top they put 9 that I had to take out myself. And then 3 more in like this part right here, which was a pain in the ass to try and take these out because I took them all out with fingernail clippers.
Damn.
And I couldn't scoop the thing, and I couldn't see because they kept getting in front of my eye. So I was kind of like trying to hook it and guess, and then I'll just pull, and hopefully I didn't clip my skin. Luckily I did it, but I wouldn't recommend that for anyone.
I have a question for you. Do you find yourself moaning more about like day-to-day pains just because like you want a little bit of sympathy? Like say for example that you're walking around and
because you do
you're
a
a
tough
fighter.
thing and you're not allowed to complain about that.
Right, like when you get hit and like cut open, whatever, you're expecting that, right? Like you're not gonna like cry or complain about it to anybody. You put yourself in that situation.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I feel like from what I've seen from my year into combat sports is that especially guys, they almost like they really need that sympathy outside the gym and outside the fights. If anything happens, like say you're walking around and you stub your toe. Like, you're definitely going to say something about it.
Oh, yeah, you make it like a really big deal. Like, very small things. Like, one night I might sleep wrong and my neck will be all kinked up and I'll just complain about it all day and see if Hannah will give me a neck massage. Like, I could go to wrestling practice and get a stinger and be fine, but like what you said, little tiny shit like that. Just blow it way out of proportion.
So this is how I found this out. So one day, Jake was sleeping over at our place, and all of a sudden, Hayden and I are taking a shower, and we hear, "Steph!" like him screaming off the top of his lungs. And Hayden goes, "I think Jake's in trouble." And I was like, "Nah." Like, really? Then I pay attention. He's like screaming off the top of his lungs. I go downstairs. He's like sitting on the stairwell holding his foot. He's like, "I got cut pretty bad. I was separating Flo from Riley because they were fighting, and I'm pretty sure my foot's all fucked up. I don't even want to see it." And then I was like, "Okay, show me." He like shows me the bottom of his foot, and it's literally a scratch. I was like, "Dude, are you kidding me?"
No,
You milked that one pretty good.
for sure. Or you know what the other thing is like, I don't know if it's just me, but I think guys in general, when we get sick, it's like way blown out of proportion.
Yeah, because it's your one time where you get to get taken care of.
It's true.
Yeah.
You know? I'm
I'm like the biggest baby when it comes to like a
Can I have a
cold and
Halls?
shit.
It's true. I don't fall for that.
huh?
I don't fall
Yo,
for
she has no sympathy for anything. I swear, if I actually accidentally cracked my head and was bleeding and on the ground going like, she would just let me do that for like 30 seconds. And if I don't stop, she'd be like, "What?"
Should I pull up the video of the time that I rolled my ankle and almost broke my ankle into 10 pieces? What did you do? That's on camera.
That's true. We
That's
were
on
playing,
video.
the shoulder tap game.
Yeah.
So it's like we used to do it to warm up, like just for boxing.
Okay.
And it's just like a movement drill. So you're trying to touch the other person's shoulder,
yeah.
and they can
Yeah.
counter or whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm like kind of faking her out, and you know those videos like where they're playing basketball and they make the person fall, and then everyone goes nuts.
Yeah.
I basically did that to Steph. I
You
faked
did
her
not
out.
do that to
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
I was wearing Yeezys in my defense. We all know those are really tall shoes. The Yeezys, what are the 500s?
Either way, I juked her,
Juked me.
and then she fell hard.
Hard.
And,
dude.
and
A rough
but I
one.
thought she was fine, so I didn't realize she actually like twisted
How
her
did you
ankle.
think? Yo, I'm like holding my foot like this, like rolling around like from side to side, and this guy just goes and walks away.
It is actually all on video too, and she had somebody like remix the video.
Caesar.
So like the thing from oh yeah, you did it. Caesar did it. Is it from American Sniper? Yeah. Where where the person's like lining them up in the scope, and then it's like
Yeah.
and they fall. He did that one.
Oh, that's good.
It's good. We should put it on the video.
But hey, usually I'm pretty sympathetic.
Sure, whatever. Anyway, back to you, Tyler. Tell us a little bit more about your career in combat sports. When did you get started? What got you into it?
I got started in MMA when I was like 15. I originally just played a bunch of sports as a kid. I was one of those kids who just have something going on every season. But my main thing was just hockey. I was like obsessed with hockey. And I played in Cincinnati. I was on the Cincinnati Cyclones. I played the highest that we could in Cincinnati was AAA. I know you know a lot about hockey.
What position did you play?
I was when I was littler, I was defense, and then I got sick of like getting no attention, so I wanted to play center so I could score some goals or something.
D. That's what I played in glorious position.
I mean, you get some glory in
Glorious.
defense, but I just wanted to score goals.
Yeah.
And so I went up to center and then did that for a while. And like my passion was like hockey. That's all I did. Eat, sleep, breathe hockey. I wanted to go to the NHL. And then the MMA gym opened up around the corner, and I asked my dad if I could go do some cross training just to get in better shape for hockey. This is about like 14 or 15. So I started going in there doing some jiu-jitsu and stuff like that, boxing. Started loving it and stuff, but it wasn't really like the thing for me yet. And then we ended up going to a tournament up in Detroit, and we played this team, the London Knights. And
They're from where I'm from.
yeah, that was the moment that I realized that I probably wasn't ever going to the NHL because these
What?
dudes just freaking skated circles around us. We were supposed to be the best team in Cincinnati, and we went up there and just got our asses beat, like 12-0. Like if there was a mercy rule, because I also played roller hockey, and they would have a mercy rule. I can't remember if it was 11 or 12 or something. But if you get up like 11-0, the game's just over. Like the ultimate, like embarrassing thing should ever happen. So this team basically could have done that. Like these kids were all 2 times as big as us. We're like 13, 14-year-old kids just skating circles around us, doing like the thing where they would be behind the net and pick it up on the stick and just drop it in. to our goalie, and I was like, this is done. I'm done with this shit. Like,
Really, that was a defining moment for you.
I was like, I'm never going to the NHL.
What?
But then at the same time, I was falling in love with MMA. So my passion for hockey was kind of going down. But then one day I went to the MMA gym and just did this grappling class. And there was this kid that was an amateur. I don't know if he was pro at the time, but I rolled with him that day, and he just beat the shit out of me, like slammed me on my head and all this. And my dad comes to pick me up, and he said I had a grin from ear to ear that day. He's like, what are you smiling about? I was like, I just got my ass beat today. I loved it. And then like a month later, I ended up telling him, I was like, I think I'm done with hockey. I want to just go full-time on MMA.
A month later.
About a month later, yeah. Like, I just started going more and more each day, doing jiu-jitsu, and then I would do boxing.
Hold
and
on, let me stop you
Muay
there.
Thai.
So I'm really interested when people quit stuff. You know, it's a topic that I talk about a lot.
Yeah.
I quit a lot of things, and initially people used to call me a quitter, or, you know, that I don't stick with things and whatnot. So I'm interested, like, you know, there's a difference between strategic quitting and reactive quitting. Strategic quitting is when you know, objectively realize that you either don't have what it takes to take it to the next level and to actually succeed. You don't have the resources, you don't have the money, the time, the energy, or the passion anymore. And then reactive quitting is quitting when something gets tough, you know, because you've encountered resistance.
Yeah.
Which one do you feel like it was for you?
I think it was a bit of the strategic, because like I had the work ethic and the drive to go to the NHL per se, but like as far as coaching and the resources, like I knew that at some point I would have needed to go somewhere else, or go to a boarding school, or go do junior once I get into high school, like go play juniors somewhere. And I don't think I was willing to do that at that time of my life. And at the same time, I was also falling in love with MMA like really hard. And then the other thing is my parents like were really strict on, like, if you're going to quit something, you're going to finish it out. Like if it's the middle of the season, you have to finish the season. Like they didn't raise me to be able to just stop and not go. Because they said, you signed up, you gave this team a commitment, and you're going to fulfill that till the end. So luckily I wasn't in season. So one day I came home, and this is after like 10 or 12 years of playing hockey, and I told my dad I was just done with it. And at first they were pissed because it's an expensive sport. Like all
They've
those
invested
years
a lot.
traveling, invested all that time, and him coming home, like he would work and travel every week and then come home, and he would have to pack another bag and get right back on the road to go up to Michigan or somewhere else. So they were a little bit upset about that, but at the same time they supported what I wanted to do. But yeah, I think it was strategic. I don't think it was the other. I think it was more of just running out of resources, or just realize that I didn't have the things around me in order to make what I wanted to do happen.
That's fair. Do you regret it?
No, I haven't ever looked back. Like I've fallen in love with the sport of MMA and just combat sports. Like I haven't ever felt more alive than when I started doing that stuff. Like I just love it, everything about it.
Continue the story. So
Yeah,
MMA, boxing.
So I started doing MMA. After that, I'm doing MMA full time in Cincinnati, and me and my dad were watching a pay-per-view one night, and he's like, "Now I'm noticing all these champions have a background in wrestling." So it was like, done. I'm going to wrestle. A lot of people think I started wrestling before MMA, and that was my transition, because usually that's a natural transition for the wrestlers these days. But I was doing the MMA stuff before wrestling. I just went into wrestling to help my MMA. So like this has always been the goal for me. It was never like just wrestle and then see what I'm going to do afterwards. It was always to go pro in MMA and fight in the UFC and do that. So everything I've done up to this point is just to supplement that. So I went out for the high school. I started wrestling in 9th grade, wrestled for 4 years, and then after that, I was just going to go pro in MMA at 18 and just be a firefighter until I had enough money to do that. But like my junior, senior year, I started to get recruited to go wrestle in college, and like I had no desire to go to college at all. Like didn't even know what I would study. And my dad and obviously my mom, nobody in my family has graduated from school yet, or college at this point. So they wanted me to go to school just selfishly to have that degree, and because it's not a bad idea to go to college anyways. But so they kind of talked me into it. But my dad was like, it's just another 4 years to work on your wrestling for MMA. And I was like, that's right. So I ended up going to wrestle at Mount St. Joseph University. And then while there, I got a degree in biology and exercise science. And then after that, like literally the day after graduation, I had my car packed and drove down here to Florida to train at the Black Zillions.
Wow.
But like that's even another whole crazy story in itself, is how I ended up down here.
Go on.
So between my junior and senior year, I went to Vegas to do American Nationals. It's a IBJJF tournament, jiu-jitsu tournament. And so I went out there, and that's the same weekend that they did the Black Zillions versus ATT finale. So they were all out there in Florida, or not in Florida, in Vegas. And after my tournament, I was walking back up to my room, and Hannah, me and her were dating at the time, but I used to watch all these highlight videos, and there was one, like, she would always let me watch Tyrone Spong's highlight videos because she thought he was hot. So I got away with just letting him watch it all the time. And so I saw him in Starbucks, and at this, like, I have been around fighters a lot at this point, so I don't get starstruck by him anymore. So I used to take pictures all the time, and I just walked by him, and I was like, yeah, I should go get a picture with him just to send it to Hannah and make her jealous. So I go in there, ask him for a picture. He's like, oh yeah, for sure. Takes a picture, and we're walking away. And he's like, hey, what's your name? And I told him, he's like, what are you doing out here? And I told him about the tournament, blah, blah, blah. He's like, do you fight and all this stuff? And he's like, I think there's something about you. I want you to come down to Florida to try out. Like, literally didn't ask him any of this stuff. It was just happening. Wow. And I was like, wow, that's my dream. Because before that, I always told Hannah, like, I want to go to Florida and train with the Black Zillions. Like, for my birthday, she bought me one of their little Jocko jerseys to wear. Like, so I had all this shit before I even came down to the team. It was kind of funny. It was a little embarrassing, but at the same time, it was whatever.
That's crazy.
So anyways, we exchanged phone numbers. Me and my dad are walking away. I'm like on top of the world thinking, is this real or not? So I text him, and I was like, hey, thanks for your time. I really am looking forward to coming down to Florida to try out. And I didn't think he was going to respond. And like within 30 minutes, he's like, absolutely looking forward to it. When I get back down there, I'll sort it out. And so like a month goes by, I don't hear from him, so I think it's over. And then he just randomly calls me. He's like, how quickly can you get to Florida? And I told my dad that, and he's like, I'll send you down there tomorrow. So within like 3 days, I was on a plane, came down here for a week to try out for the team. And then at the end of the week, they ended up offering to sign me to the Black Zillions fight team and the contract with their management. And then, so that's why, like the day after I graduated college, my car was already packed, came straight down here.
Dude.
Damn, that's crazy. That's
Yeah.
And thanks, Hannah, huh?
Right.
It's funny how life works, right? Like if that wasn't a thing, then maybe you wouldn't have got the photo.
She
maybe you
never
wouldn't
told me
have
that. I wouldn't have even gotten a picture
Dude,
with it.
listen, I go back and forth between believing in destiny and not believing in destiny. Like, it's such a, I don't know, like a taboo thing for me. Mm-hmm. But, dude, like, what are the chances?
Exactly, yeah.
You know?
Well,
That's
so many
insane.
things had to align, right?
So many
You had to,
things.
like, kind of, you know, be like, I usually don't ask for photos, but this one time I will, and then it all, like
Before that, I had already walked by, like, Michael Bisping and GSP and all these guys. Didn't ask any of them for pictures. And I saw Tyrone just to get a picture to show Hannah. But this is funny.
When you first started MMA, did your parents have reservations about it?
Oh, yeah, for sure, just because of the sport. And they had seen all the highlights and the blood and the violence and stuff. And my dad was a little bit against it, but a little bit less than my mom. My mom just couldn't stand it. Especially, I had my first fight when I was 18, and I fought some 32-year-old dude in Kentucky, and there was like zero rules. They told us to buy our own 4-ounce gloves. Oof. They told us to wrap your own hands. There was no athletic commission. They didn't check gloves or hand wraps.
Oh my God.
Me and my opponent were in the same locker room together, and it's like,
that's so awkward,
it was
dude.
Crazy. Just warming up, hitting pads right next to each other.
Wow.
Oh my God.
It was fun, though. He ended up throwing in the towel in the first round. But it was funny because the day before at weigh-ins, he was like, yeah, this is supposed to be my comeback fight, and they give me some fucking 18-year-old kid who says he's some wrestler or something, but we'll see about that when I start hitting him in the face. But
wow.
And then he ends up shooting on me in the fight. He didn't even try and stand with me.
Wow.
It was funny.
He put his words right up his culo.
And that was your pro debut?
That was my amateur debut. That was before I went to college.
How does amateur MMA differ from pro? Because I know in boxing there's like it's a different, sort of a different style.
Yeah, like the time for amateur MMA, you fight 3-minute rounds. I'm not really sure. I should know this, but I'm not sure if for title fights they do 5 threes or not. I think it's still 3 threes, but don't quote me on that. But I know in Florida you got to wear shin guards. Ohio, you also wear shin guards, but Kentucky, when I fought, there was like 0 rules. And then you're supposed to wear 8-ounce gloves, and then there's no kicks to the head or knees to the head and elbows. No, you can kick to the head, but you can't knee to the head or elbow.
Okay.
And then in Florida, if you have less than 4 fights, so don't quote me on any of this stuff. I'm just kind of like rambling it off, but I'm pretty sure that if you have less than 4 fights on the ground, when it hits the ground, it's only grappling.
Oh.
Because when I fought, I had 1 fight in Tampa before I went pro down here. And at the time, I only had 1 amateur fight, but my experience was a lot more than that because I was already training with the Black Zillions and then wrestling and all that before. And they were going to try and make me do a fight with somebody else that had like 1 or 2 fights, and when it hit the ground, there was no punching, and I didn't want to do that. So they ended up giving me a guy that was like 6 or 7-0 just so we could bypass that rule.
Oh, so as long as one person
Yeah.
has more than the whatever required amount of fights, the other guy can sort of like waive that.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like they're getting more lenient about it too, because I just cornered one of my guys like a month ago for a kickboxing fight, and they were supposed to wear headgear, and there's usually no elbows for amateurs, but at the rules meeting, they're like, we're adopting the new Muay Thai rules, so if you and your opponent agree that you don't want to wear headgear, then you don't have to wear that, and also if you guys want to throw elbows, we're going to do those tonight too. We have elbow pads for everybody. And you should have seen these kids' eyes in the locker room when they're like, oh, fuck, we're throwing elbows. Like, they were not ready for that shit. Me and my buddy were just laughing so fun.
Like they were nervous about it?
I was excited about it. I was like, oh, this is going to be fun to watch these amateur kids try and elbow the shit out of each other. But none of them were really about it. And my guy ended up, his opponent wanted to wear headgear and didn't want to elbow, so he didn't get to do it. But I know those are the rules. And then at least in Florida and most states, you have to have a certain amount of amateur fights until you're allowed to go pro. So like Florida, they require 5. I'm pretty sure Ohio's the same. And but then you can also do like what I did. I had 2 amateur fights, and then I just skipped the rest and went out to South Dakota, where they don't care how many you have, and just went straight to pro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a lot of people take that route.
Yeah.
You took that route.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just fought in the DR where you didn't need any amateur fights or anything.
Mm-hmm. What was there a moment when you first started doing MMA/wrestling that you felt that you had what it took to be really successful in the sport? Was it because for me, I'll give you an example. For me, in the past, like when I did weightlifting, powerlifting, and now boxing, for me it was the speed at which I was learning that was a really good indicator that I could do it. Mm-hmm. I was just advancing faster than the norm. Was there something like that for you?
Yeah, I mean, as far as like the grappling level, like when I first started wrestling, for the first half of the season, I was undefeated. Just naturally picked up on just how to grapple, where to move, and all these things to do, like the shots. Like I really picked up on that quickly, and then it translated to jiu-jitsu really well. So I was able to compete with a lot higher belts and move up quicker than most people. And I found myself training with some guys that are in the pros. Like I was training with Rich Franklin when he was at the height of his career in the UFC when I was like 16, 17 years old. And this is only after like 3 years of training. So like I picked up on it quick, but I was also just literally would go home and just watch it all day long. So I was getting reps in at the gym, and I would go home and get mental reps in. So like that's one thing that people overlook a lot, but it just came naturally to me, like really quickly. So I think that was when I kind of realized that this is what I am meant to do, not even just want to do.
Yeah, watching like footage, or if it's a traditional sport, game tape is like super important.
Oh yeah.
And even I found growing up playing like NHL on like Xbox helped. We used to call it Chell. I don't know if you guys called it that. We like, you playing Chell later?
Chell.
Did you ever play Hits?
Yeah, that one was just ridiculous.
Get, like, their heads on fire.
You catch on fire if you're on a roll.
Yeah. That game was fun.
So good. But yeah, in NHL, that was like just, you see, you do some move that you can't do, and then you see them do it, and you're like, oh, I'm going to try that. And you start messing around with it, and you like pick up on it.
You can like run little plays in the NHL game, like what they call cycling the puck through the corner and stuff. Like you can do all that. The UFC game, not so much, because they're still kind of lagging behind in fighting, so you can't really learn from that. But there was one
guy who said they did, though. It was somebody big too.
Probably Max Holloway, he thinks.
Yeah, it was him. It was Max Holloway.
What did he do?
He said that he did some move in a fight, and then was like, "Yeah, I just learned it playing the UFC video game."
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I tried the virtual reality boxing thing. It's pretty shit.
Really?
Is it like Wii boxing? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that game. Wii boxing.
Yeah.
Have you seen the videos of guys just like accidentally punching their TV?
Yeah.
They didn't realize it get too close when they're wearing the headsets.
Oh my god.
Where they throw the remote and break their TV.
But I'm gonna. If you don't have any more questions about this, I want to pivot. Pivoting. Okay.
All right.
So, I'm always really interested when I speak to fighters on the podcast about their the mental aspect of fighting. Specifically. So the first question I had for you is about who or what are you fighting for?
I mean, at the end of the day, I'm fighting for myself. A lot of I know that these are gonna. Well, it began for myself, but then as I've gone on, I start to fight for more things. Like I'm fighting for me and Hannah's future. One day I'll have a child that I'll be fighting for. So as you go, I think you end up fighting for more things than just yourself. But to start, I do it for myself because I love it. It's something that I've always wanted to do and what I set out for. And I didn't really get into it for the money. I mean, obviously the money's going to be nice, but it's just my passion for the sport, and it's something that I've always wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And there's been things in my life that I set out to do that never really got to accomplish or fell just short of. And so this is just the one thing that I'm like, I'm going to do this. Mm-hmm. And it's for me. Like, I always tell my dad about it because we'll have talks about fighting and stuff, and I'm like, this is just something that I need to do. It's just for me.
What's the ultimate goal?
The ultimate goal is UFC champion and get on the pound for pound top 10 list. Is like, I have really high expectations for myself, and I know that I'm capable of doing those things because I trained with until he left to go to Colorado, the current welterweight champ, and he's the number one pound for pound guy on the list. And like, I was in the gym with him every day, so I know what's capable and what it takes to get there. And so like, it's just something that I've set out that I want to do for myself.
Where do you feel like you're lagging?
Right now, I think it's a little bit of like experience, because like I just said about the amateur thing, I skipped my whole amateur career and went straight to pro, and I think that's extremely beneficial. Like, if somebody were to ask me one day, my number one advice, I would say take your time in the amateurs, because you can gain so much experience. Like right now I'm learning, or I was, like now I'm pretty comfortable in there, but I was learning on the professional scene, like making mistakes, and that's not where you want to be doing that. You want to get all those kinks ironed out in the amateur levels, so that when you get in the pros, all that's done with and you're ready to go. Like, I was making amateur mistakes early on in my career that I should have not been doing. So,
like what?
I mean, like, I got thrown into I lost my second fight. I got guillotined in my second fight. I was being hyped up. I was this blue chip prospect, next big thing, and I got thrown straight into like the third fight from the main event on an LFA card, national televised, and like the nerves and everything was already getting to me. And then on top of that, this kid had more fights than me, and he had a huge amateur career. And I go out there and get cracked like a little bit and panic instantly. And I'm like, oh shit, I got to revert to my wrestling base. So I take a sloppy shot and basically just hand him a gift wrapped guillotine, like, here you go, just finish the fight. Where before, like now that has happened, now in fights where I get hit kind of hard and your head's ringing a little bit, it's like I've been there before. I'm just like, oh, just start moving, shake it out, and get back to work. Like, it's nothing now. But then the first time happening on that level, I was like panicked big time. My mind I couldn't compose myself at the time. That's
interesting. Why was it that you skipped, or that you had a short amateur career?
Because I was really eager to go pro. Like, I had deadlines for myself that I was going to meet that I'm like still not. Like, I thought I was going to be in the UFC 5 years ago by now and have the belt right now if I had my way. Like, I thought I was going to go pro at 18, UFC by like 23, win the belt, and it is the fight game will just laugh in your face like that, because I am still trying to get into the UFC. I'm 28 now, and like, I was just really regimented with like, I need this to happen, this to happen, this to happen. And sometimes I think that's a downfall. It's like, I want things to happen, and if they don't, then I get really hard on myself, and I think I'm not doing something right, or think I need to work harder, or do this and that. And it can be like a downfall. Cause
I was going to say, like, expectations are really dangerous.
Yeah, I have
expectations
very high expectations.
That you set for yourself. Like, it is important to have high expectations, but I think above all is more important to have high standards and not focus so much on the expectations. The expectations let you down, but the standards are something that you can live by, right? Like, the standard is I never miss training session. The standard is I give it my best every time. The standard is, even when I don't want to do it, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean?
100%.
But if you focus so much on those expectations, it's crushing. Like, I just had a conversation with Hayden the other day about, I got out of my not this one, but my previous sparring session, and I know I did well, like relative to how long I've been doing it for, but I felt like I had a certain expectation of where I would be a year into boxing, and I didn't meet it. I felt like I would look looser, or I felt like I would, have better conditioning, or that I would look, more composed during the fight. Yep. And I didn't. And that's what I was, getting down on myself for. And it's dangerous, because if you play that game, man, like, oh my God. The mental
wears on you the rest of the day, can carry into the next day. I mean,
exactly. and crushes your confidence.
Oh yeah.
Well, and if you think that, it doesn't matter how much progress you make, it's always going to be not enough in your mind, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what makes, I think, a lot of successful people in whatever sport good, is that they're never satisfied.
Yeah.
So you keep pushing, you keep trying to do that. You're always going to find something you could have done better. You watch the video and you're like, oh, why did I do this? I could have done that. So, I mean, I think it's like you should set like a little time for yourself where you analyze that, you feel good or bad, and then you move on. It's in the past.
For sure.
You know?
That was like one thing I got from Trevor Whitman a while ago. He's a boxing coach out in Colorado. Is he says never leave a practice negative. Like still try and find one or two things that you did positive in that practice, and then focus on that. Because I used to go into sparring sessions, and I would have like maybe we do 5 rounds that day. 2 of those rounds are great, but then 3 of them could have been shit. I just focused on those 3 rounds, and I'm like, damn, I suck at fighting. Like, what am I doing? I need to go do something else. When in reality, I had 2 really good sparring sessions, and it's not like we're there to win a fight. We're there to get better and work on technique. And I didn't look at it that for a long time.
Yeah.
And so once I started looking at it like that, I was like, okay, I did this really well today and this really well today. Let's build on that. And I started giving myself like, you can dwell on this for like 2 hours or till the end of the day, and then when the day's over, you're never thinking about it again.
Yeah.
Or when you leave the gym, it stays in the gym.
Because, dude, sparring is similar to a random max out session at the gym. Like, it's not an accurate representation of how you're going to perform on your fight. You know, I think a spar is more similar to just kind of like it's an assessment for your coach to see where you're at and where your flaws are and what you need to be working on. It's nothing more than a test or an assessment for your coach and yourself to see where you're staying behind or what you're doing well.
Exactly.
So, and then the other thing is, so my sports psychologist, I spoke to him about that, about how I get down on myself after sparring. And this I've been actually doing. I've started about 13 training journals, and I get like
and
maybe
uses page 1.
Yeah, page
Oh,
1.
I'm right there with you. I'm doing that real quick.
It's so bad. But this time I'm on like, I think I've recorded a couple weeks already.
Okay.
PR.
And PR. It's so much easier when you have something specific to write about, because I don't know, I don't like journaling. I don't like talking about emotions. You know, I'm a more objective person. Did I do well? Did I not? Did I lift the thing? Did I not? How many points did I score? You know, did I do the combination that you asked me to do, or did I not? But his advice was just have a training log, and after every sparring, just write what you did well. Don't even like think about, you can think about it and talk to your coach about what you didn't do well, but just write what you did well.
Yeah.
And then just looking back at it, you forget the things that you didn't do well. And in the moment, they seem so much bigger. You know, it seems catastrophic, the mistakes that you made. You're like, fuck, I'm never going to make it to the UFC. I'm never going to be a respected pro boxer. But you like, really, you forget about that.
Yeah.
Especially if you do it intentionally, right? If you highlight the things that you did well and you just let go of the things that you didn't, you know, and it's a powerful thing. I highly recommend anyone that's listening to try that.
I need to get better about that.
Do you think, because you said your ultimate goal is to go to the UFC, do you think the UFC will always be the pinnacle of MMA?
I think so, yeah. I think that...
It's interesting to see now. I think it's PFL is doing that like $6 million tournament, and then you have Bellator like kind of taking some of the, I guess the like top contender guys that are not who the UFC are super focused on anymore. So it's like, it's interesting to see that, and I think those promotions are really trying to amp those aspects of it up. But at least for me, I like the UFC is. I feel.
I mean,
like
it's like if you talk to the casual fans, they say, like you'll catch people saying, "Hey, you train UFC?" Like people associate MMA with UFC. That's it. Like they don't really know. Like not everyone's gonna know who Bellator and PFL are, but at the same time, those promotions are paying their fighters a lot better on average than the UFC is paying their fighters.
That's crazy to me.
Would you take a better contract with like Bellator over UFC, or would you take less money just to be in the UFC?
Well, see that right now I've already been offered to fight with Bellator. I've had opportunities to do that. I've had one Bellator fight, and afterwards they said they wanted to have me back, and then since then I've had 2 or 3 more opportunities to go sign with them, and I've just been holding out because it's just been my childhood dream to fight in the UFC. Like I was saying before, it's never really been about the money for me.
Right.
And obviously I want to make a lot of money doing this and be able to set myself up financially for later on in life and not have to go work a 9 to 5. But right now I feel like I'm in the stage of my life where I can still hold off on waiting for the UFC because I know it's going to come. It's just a matter of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm going to be signed by the end of this year, but I have given myself deadlines. If that weren't to happen, then yes, I would go sign with Bellator, PFL, or One and start getting paid the money that I'm
One's
worth.
pretty crazy.
Yeah.
No.
One's paying guys really well, and they also sometimes pay guys like monthly
Oh, really?
things too.
Like
Yeah.
a salary? That's pretty cool. I mean, there's been a couple big name
And-
UFC guys who went over there and got fucked up.
Oh yeah, like Eddie Alvarez and Demetrius Johnson went over there, and they're having tough fights. But One's also about to start having shows in the U.S. because Rich Franklin works with One, and he told one of my buddies that they're getting ready to come over here and start putting on shows and stuff.
Damn, that's cool. And their rules are a bit different, right? Like you can
Yeah,
knee on the ground.
Yeah, they're like pride rules. You can do all that.
Because it's in Asia, right?
Yeah,
That's where
right
it's
now, basically, like most of the fights they've been doing right now is in Singapore.
I wonder if they'll be able to keep those rules when they come over here.
I think so, because I mean, you got guys doing bare knuckle MMA over here, so I think it's just
Yeah,
about
true.
promotions and the commissions.
Tyler, you said that at one point you were undefeated,
No, just 1-0, because then I lost my second fight.
but was it in the amateurs or
In the amateurs, I was undefeated.
did
For
you ever lose?
My wrestling career, I was undefeated for like 3/4 of the season.
Okay, and then did you lose at some point?
Yeah.
So talk to me through that.
I took that loss like really hard when I lost in wrestling the first time because I thought I was just a world beater. Like I didn't lose until we got to the freshman state tournament, and then I lost in like the second round, and I thought I was going to win it. My first year wrestling some protege stud and ended up losing, and I took it to heart big time, and then the rest of my tournament went way downhill like quick. I don't even think I placed at that tournament because of that, and I should have at least gotten top 5, but didn't place at all. Like it sabotaged me mentally big time.
How did you feel? Like talk to me or talk through that loss. You know, like you lost, and then what were you like? What was going through your mind?
Like just like we were saying, I have such high expectations for myself, and I hold myself at such a high like accountability that when I lose, like I beat myself up worse than anybody could possibly beat me up. And I have gone down like dark holes where I'll just be like that for like a week or two at a time, just in a bad headspace, because I think if you lose one time, it's the end of the world and you're never going to get there. And so that one sucked. But when I lost my second fight as a pro in MMA, that one was the worst, because I was hyped up big time, like some blue chip prospect, blah, 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 all this stuff. And then I come out and lose my second fight in the first round to a submission. I'm like, I'm never going to get there now. Like, this is it. I'm done.
How did you get out of it, out of that headspace?
Luckily, like, Kamaru has always been like a mentor to me, and he lost his second fight. So me and him, he talked a lot to me about that. And so he helped pull me out of that a little bit. And then just a lot of other guys that I train with. I've been lucky to train with a lot of high-level who's and who of the UFC and all these other promotions, and they've all had losses, and they gave me advice on, like, first off, MMA is not like boxing where you really need to have an undefeated record to be a big star.
Right.
And two, like, you're going to lose at some point. And, like, look at it positively. You got the loss out of the way. Now you can just focus on going out there and fighting. But it sucked for a while. Like, I was, like, depressed and just not in a good headspace for a really long time. And then literally right after that is when I ended up getting really sick with this lung infection, which I had been fighting with that I didn't know about. And I ended up in the hospital like 3 months after that loss, and had chest tubes in for a month afterwards, and they drained like 1.12 liters out of my pleural cavity. It was crazy. Yeah.
Jesus, what led to that?
It was,
I don't know.
so I had a non-cancerous tumor in my left bronchial, like right at the top part, and it was blocking 70% of my airway. Wow. And they said because it's like the opposite of cancer, so cancer tumors like grow rapidly, they're very fast. This one grows so slow that they said it had been in my lung for at least 5 or more years.
Whoa.
And my body was just adapting to it over time and putting up with it to a certain extent.
Wow.
And then, like, literally the first year I moved down here, I would get bronchitis like once a month. And I was like, this is crazy. I've never gotten sick like this. And it was just my body getting to that point of failure, like, hey, we can't keep doing this anymore. But I had no idea. And so I went and saw a doctor, and they told me, you just have asthma. And I was like, there's no way I have fucking asthma. Like, I have not had asthma my whole life. And I refused to believe it. Like, they prescribed me all these inhalers, and I just went home and threw them in the drawer, wouldn't use them. Like, tried to cure myself on my diet. So, because my nutrition's always been a big passion of mine. So I was like, no, I'm just going to cure myself with my nutrition. did that, and I mean, it helped me. I think that at the end of the day, my nutrition ended up like elongating like all this shit. Like it would have been way sooner if I didn't take care of myself the way I did.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I did that, would get bronchitis, go to the doctor, they would give me a Z-Pack and the steroid. It was like routine. Like they would see me and they're like, no, it was getting ridiculous.
God.
So then I ended up on New Year's Eve, Hannah and I just went out to go do a little 3-mile jog. This was in 2018. And you would think that's easy. I couldn't even finish a mile. I told her, I was like, I'm just going to walk back home. I can't, like, coughing up all this nasty stuff and couldn't even barely run. So I go home and we sat down, had dinner later that night, and then I start getting like these terrible pains down my left side.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, I told her, and she's like, well, so she goes to the store and buys Tums because we think it's like indigestion or something. Like, this is how stupid we were. I mean, we're not stupid, we just didn't know. So then, and every time we had extra bed sheets because I used to wake up sweating all the time. So like these should have all been triggers that I should have known something was going on. But I just was in deny because I'm down here trying to live my dream. I'm training with the Black Zillions, busting my ass for all these years to get here, and I'm not going to let this shit stop me. And so on New Year's morning at like 4 a.m., I'm laying in the bed because I went to our guest bedroom because I didn't want to keep her up because I used to cough all the time. And I text her at like 4 a.m. I'm like, whenever you decide to wake up for the day, can you take me to urgent care because this is not normal? And she's like, yeah, sure, but she's kind of bitching about it. Like, I always hold this up to her because she feels so bad about it now. And then, like, 2 hours go by. At 6 a.m., I'm like, I just texted her because she was giving me a little attitude because she didn't want to go. So at 6 a.m., I just texted her help. And I knew that would get her to come over. And I was just curled up in the bed. And she said I was, like, purple. And she took me to the ER. They said I had pneumonia. And they're like, there's no way somebody in your health should be getting pneumonia 2 times like this because I had it 2 years prior. So then they started running other tests like the CT scan or whatever, the CAT scan, I think. Mm-hmm. And they found a tumor in my lung. So then they go take that out. At this point, I'm freaking the fuck out because I think I've got lung cancer and all this shit. So they do a biopsy on that. It comes back non-cancerous. But then they tell me that I have to get a surgery where they're going to go in through my ribs and take the infection out. And it's supposed to be a 30-minute procedure, and it ended up being 3 hours long. And the doctor he came out and told my dad, he's like, if you would have waited 24 to 36 more hours, he was going to die. Because my lung had collapsed to 30%, my left lung. And they said it was like the infection had wrapped around my lung. Like he said he was basically like, you know how when you peel an orange with those tools? Like he said that's basically what it was like peeling this thing off my lung. And so this is on January 1st. I had 2 chest tubes in.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, right. I have 2 chest tubes in, and I was in the hospital from January 1st to the 13th, and then they let me leave the hospital with the chest tubes in for like a whole nother month, and I had a PICC line in my right arm. So I'm like, every night I had to sit down and make my own little antibiotic IV bag and these chest tubes, and I always told the doctor, I was like, so when can I fight again? They're like, I don't even know if you're going to live like a normal life again. That should be the last thing you should worry about right now. They're like, your left lung could potentially be so scarred that it's going to cause these problems, this and that. And so I texted my manager and I was like, when's the next fight in Sioux Falls? And he said it's on April 20th. So I was like, well, plan for me to be on that one. And this is on January 13th. And so when I got out of the hospital, like with the tubes and the PICC line in, I would just go to the gym and get on the Stairmaster, just trying to build my lungs up, just climbing. And then I would hit every leg machine in the gym because I was just so determined to get back. And so the infectious disease doctor was the one that told me I was probably never going to fight again. And then when I went back for my follow-up, she did all the tests. They did a whole scan of my lung. I had to do a bronch and all this stuff. And they said that my lung had completely bounced back to 100%. And they had never seen somebody heal that fast. And they're like, it's like the Wolverine. So that was where I got my nickname from. Like I didn't just pick Wolverine because I liked the superhero. It was just because the doctor said that. And then she ended up making me a case study that she said she presents to her students on the way I recovered from it and the infection and how serious it was and shit at FAU.
Did she say anything about were the things that you were doing helping? Like was it good that you were going to the gym and doing what you could and going
I think
on the
that they
Stairmaster?
said just trying to move and get my lungs working again helped build it up quicker. And then the way because when I was in the hospital, like every night I would just be on Google, like what's the best diet for like anti-inflammation, recovery, all this stuff. Like I would only eat that stuff. And I was like in the hospital doing push-ups, leaning on the wall. Like I was crazy. Like I was determined to get back. But I ended up fighting on April 20th.
Wow.
So
and how'd it go?
Quick. I won decision. But at the same time, I wanted to finish the kid. But at the same time, I just wanted to go 3 rounds to see how my lungs felt. But it was like night and day. It was like I had a brand new pair of lungs.
Wow.
But ever since then, my career completely changed. So like, I don't blame my first loss on that because it sounds like I'm making excuses. But at the same time, I wasn't really
At the same time, you had a tumor in your lungs.
Yeah, that blocked 70% of my airway.
Yeah. It's pretty significant, if you ask me.
Damn. So how many fights do you have now?
10. I'm 8-2 now.
8-2. Nice. And did you say you knew when the next one is?
It's supposed to be in October sometime, penciled in the 22nd, but that could change. They said there was possibly some dates in the beginning of the month maybe that I could get on, but
is that here?
The 22nd one would be in Vail.
Oh, okay. You don't really think of that spot as like a fight spot, huh?
Yeah.
Like sweaters tied around your neck and skiing and brunch.
Right.
So when's your next fight?
So maybe in October, but I'd like to fight in the beginning of October, preferably not the 22nd, but because I wanted to fight 4 times this year. I've already fought twice. Because up until this point, I've only been able to fight twice a year. Like sometimes when I get booked to fight, I've been going through this thing where I'll get one opponent and then he'll pull out. Then I get another guy and then he'll sign the contract and pull out. And it goes through like one time I went through 8 opponents.
Yo, that's so annoying.
Or this last fight looked a little bit uglier than it should have because that dude, my original opponent, accepted the fight, signed the contract. A week later, pulls back out. They give me somebody else. He pulled out. Then that original opponent comes back in. And then he pulled out. And then this dude signs up on 6 days' notice to fight me. And I tried to look him up. He had 0 fight footage. So, like, I went into this fight blind.
Wow.
And so, like, the first round, he comes out and hits me with this 3-piece combo that I've never seen him throw before. Wasn't even expecting it. And cuts me up within, like, a minute and a half of the fight. So it looked pretty rough. Like I was getting my ass beat the first round because I'm bleeding all over the place, got these cuts. But like I was telling everybody, I was getting reads the whole first round on him, like learning what he likes, what he doesn't, which is a benefit to sparring at Stanford. Is just so many different bodies in the gym, is that I was able to adapt to his fighting style pretty quick to where if I was just sparring with the same 1 or 2 partners all the time, that would have been a little bit more challenging to try and adapt to that and make the changes that I needed to. But I ended up doing that in the 2nd and 3rd round. I won both those and came back and won. So it wasn't pretty, but a lot of people, even some veterans in the sport, told me that that's probably my biggest win just because of the adversity that I had to go through in that fight and the way I handled it and stuff. So I was happy about it. I mean, I wasn't happy about it until they told me that. And then I kind of stepped back and looked at it like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, that's risky.
Yeah.
There's probably a lot of people who wouldn't take a fight like that, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. And then you'll get a lot of guys nowadays in MMA that will pad their records. They only fight losing opponents because they want to just get all these finishes because the UFC likes finishes and they like undefeated records, but they're not fighting anybody. Like these guys are fighting, I call them tomato cans, like somebody you just found off the street 2 days ago. Yeah.
I feel like even, like obviously Sean O'Malley's awesome, but he's kind of like, most of his fights are against guys like that, except for Cheeto Vera and he busted his leg. But, it's like the last guy, I always find it funny, this is kind of a tangent, but in MMA or fight sports, whenever they're talking about how tough a guy is, it's always because he's getting his ass kicked but won't get knocked out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that guy was definitely tough as nails.
But I mean, like, what's the fun in being tough? It's cool to take a punch, but fuck that, dude. Like, I'd rather just win the damn fight, not just be known as tough.
Yeah. Did you watch that fight?
Oh, yeah.
Oof.
I think they should have gave him the last 30 seconds just to finish the fight, but I mean, that kid was just like a Pez machine the whole fight.
Yeah, he was getting
So, like, what's the benefit in being tough if you're not winning,
I'm with you.
It's like, I know I'm tough, but I'm going to be tough and not have to use my toughness.
Yeah, I mean, and that kid took, like, just 3 straight rounds of, like, didn't Sean O'Malley, like, break the
record? I mean, what does that say about Sean O'Malley's power, though?
Yeah, true. But he usually
I've seen
wins
him
by
knock
knockout.
guys out too. He's, maybe that kid is just like a zombie.
It's like a Nate Diaz type guy.
Yeah,
will never get knocked out.
But I also kind of feel. Did you see what he said recently about? He's like, I'm not going to fight ranked opponents until the UFC starts paying me what I'm worth. Like, he said whether I fight a ranked opponent or not, I get paid the same amount of money.
Sure. So it's like you're taking on all this.
Like you're starting to get
risk.
more and more guys speaking up about the pay structure in MMA.
Yeah, how do you
Especially
feel about,
the UFC, not just MMA, because other promotions do pay guys. The UFC, I think that they really do need to step up the way they pay fighters, because there's guys that are, these guys are world-class fighters. Like, we're all the most elite fighters in the world, and some guys got to work 2 or sometimes 1 or 2 different jobs on the side and then try and train on top of that. And it's like, how do you expect these guys to go perform at the level that you want them to, and then not be able to train as much? Like, NFL guys don't have to go work another job. MLB players aren't working other jobs, and the UFC holds themselves to that same standard, or at least they want to. But they're not paying their athletes and giving them the opportunities to give their best in the cage.
Yeah, they're like way below most of the main sports. The profit split is about 50-50 athletes to like the teams in the organization. And I think UFC is like in the, I want to say they're like 20 or something.
I think it's like
that.
20 or 30.
Yeah, it's
and then they sign with these, it used to be Reebok, now it's Venom, so they've taken away the fighter's opportunity to get any more income from sponsors on their shorts, which now, like, you see in Bellator, these, like, some of these guys in the UFC said they lost like 6 figures from sponsorships once they signed these clothing deals with Venom and Reebok.
Yeah, that's crazy. I remember when that first happened, it was a huge problem.
Like, some of the guys said it's just like a slap in the face, because you get paid 6 figures to buy all these different sponsors, and then your UFC check on top. Now I'm getting a $5,000 check from Reebok, and then whatever the UFC is paying me. Yeah, cool.
Man, that sucks. It sucks. It's a weird game now, because it's like, we were talking about this on a podcast earlier, where like social media has become such an important thing in combat sports, where it's like, you look at these guys and like whether you like them or not, the Jake Paul, Logan Paul, those guys, they've sort of like built their own bought-in fan base and audience. That like, it doesn't matter what they do, they can go do like a yo-yo championship, you know, and like
people
all
are
their
tune into it.
Yeah, everyone's gonna tune in. So it's like.
But I honestly think they're doing more good for the sport. Like, did you see his press conference, or not press conference, the video? Where did we watch that?
Which one?
It was like the last boxing fight. They played a video that he had made, and he's talking about how he wants to build a better future for boxing. He's like supporting Amanda Serrano.
Oh yeah, that was their like the behind the scenes thing that Showtime did after the.
I think
fight.
that's cool.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely like on the side of the fighter. Like, he's always calling out Dana White and stuff like that. Do you think that really puts pressure on the UFC to make a change?
I don't.
So public.
I think maybe a little bit, but I don't know. Really, I don't really think they care too much. I think that the way the sport's going now is just about what you were saying, is just individual branding, and that's the way guys are making a lot of money these days. Is how's your social media look? Because there's guys that are way better than some of these guys in the UFC. Like, they're both in the UFC. One guy's way better than the other, but the other guy's really good at his social media branding and his market and the way he markets himself, and he's getting paid way more money than that guy.
Yeah. Well, at least what it does is it allows you to walk to the negotiation table with some leverage and be like, look, this is my fan base that I bring to the fight.
Exactly.
You know, you're gonna get pay-per-view dollars. You're gonna be able to do this. So it's like, it's weird now, and I feel like there's a stigma to it. Like, there used to be in the fitness industry when Instagram first became a thing, but I feel like there is now too, where like some guys are just like, I don't do that whole social media thing or whatever, and it's like, well, I mean, I kind of feel like everybody should to some extent now, because
I used to be like that, honestly. Like, I hated it. Like, I always said, if I didn't have to do social media, like, then I wouldn't do it at all, because I hate doing it. But now it's to the point where I'm like, this is part of my job. I have to do this.
Exactly. It is
like,
part
if
of
I
my
want
job.
to make money and set myself up for good deals and stuff in the future, then I need to build my own brand. Like, I have to. You don't have a choice.
Exactly.
Because there's so many talented fighters out there, like thousands of guys in the world trying to get into the UFC. You're not all going to make it.
Yeah.
So you got to bring something to the table, and I think that the guys that do really well with their social media and their brands are the ones that get signed before the other guys.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
On that note, I have to go have a phone call, and then I have a meeting.
All right.
Rapid fire questions.
All right.
Favorite food?
Favorite food? It would be French fries.
Okay. What kind?
Just like,
Regular?
but you can burn them a little bit too. Like, I like them crunchy.
Right, okay, crunchy.
Odd choice.
Yeah, odd. Yeah, that's definitely not normal.
Like the crunchy ones, like on the bottom of the bag. I like those with the crunch.
Oh man, those are the ones I skip.
Favorite place that you've ever visited?
I would say Vancouver was like one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen.
That's a cool spot.
Favorite color?
Purple.
Favorite sex position?
Reverse cowgirl?
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
No, never.
Get the fuck out of here. I'm kidding. On that note, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. Appreciate your time. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Wolverine_170. And then Twitter right now is Tizzle_Ray. And the I is a 1. But I'm going to change that
Bro,
too.
that's so complicated.
I know. I'm going to change it to
No one remember
Wolverine170
that.
as well.
No one's looking you up on Twitter just because of that.
Well, my Twitter is literally just Instagram that gets shared to Twitter, so I'm not that good on there anyways.
Okay.
So if you want to really follow me, then just go to Instagram.
Okay, right on. Thank you so much for your time.